and they think the shadow is the real thing. It's reality, you know, of a tree, of a bird, whatever you can make from the shadow. Then one day someone takes that person out of that shadow, and then you see the original form. You see what a hand actually looks like. You see what a bird looks like. You see true reality. So then you understand that the shadow was given a semblance of the real thing. It was given a silhouette of the real thing, but it wasn't the real thing. But it gave us clues about the real thing, you know? So from the shadow, we can understand there is something called substance. So this topic, substance, refers to what is reality. And the shadow refers to what is not the ultimate, what is not, it's real, but it's not the ultimate reality. Okay, it's not that it's not real, it doesn't exist. It does exist, but it's not the ultimate reality. So most of us, like, you know, we trust science, textbooks, documentaries, you know, like, and then, you know, sometimes we watch these programs, we quote it back to our friends, you know, to show off our knowledge, you know. I remember when I used to read encyclopedias when I was young, I would go back to school and show off my encyclopedic knowledge. So, you know, but, you know, and then, you know, we believe these personalities who say these things, you know, like, despite some of them could be quite crazy. But when we speak about spirituality, we speak about God, we speak about the soul, then our standard changes, you know. We always say, what do we always say when we speak about God? We need, begins with P. No, begins with P. Proof. No, faith, proof. We need proof. But other things we don't ask for it because we think it's such a unknown thing. It's such something outside the purview of our senses. We need proof, you know. And that kind of, you know, some people say that sounds made up. Like I remember my friend used to tell me these things when I was young, and I would believe them, you know. And then I realized he was lying. I mean, he wasn't talking about something spiritual, but it was something material. But at the time, it was like extraordinary. It was like amazing, you know. You know, so sometimes we see on YouTube, we see these videos of people. If you do this, you'll get this much back, you know. It's a bit like a Ponzi scheme. Like you put money into it and you expect like to get like triple your money or 10 times your money, you know. So sometimes they say if it's too good to be true, what's the next part of the sentence? If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Okay. So, right. So so what we're trying to do in this presentation, we want to basically not just understand the substance, but how do we get to the substance? How do we use the shadow to get to the substance? Okay, so I'm going to introduce a story. It's one of my favorite books when I was a kid. The Lion, who knows about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Has anyone read it? Not read it? Everyone's read it. Okay. It's like one of the best books ever. So, you know, if you want to read good books, read books that were written 100 years ago, not now, not Harry Potter. You know, they're not good books. Like, so C.S. Lewis, The Person of it's controversial. I'm an educator, so, you know, because I study grammar and literature. So anyway, so I didn't think that was controversial. I mean, in England we can't accept that. What's that?
You mean time-tested books?
Yeah, exactly. Time. Old is gold. So let me just give a snap. So I'm not here to tell you the story of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but there's an important discussion that happens in that book. So Lucy had she has 3 siblings, Peter, Edmund, I forgot the other 4th person's name. So during World War II, they're evacuated to the countryside, and they stay at this house of this professor, this eccentric professor, who's super intelligent, super sophisticated. And one day they're playing hide and seek. And while they're playing hide and seek, so Lucy goes into this wardrobe to hide, and then she finds another doorway in that wardrobe. She walks through it and she ends up in this magical land. You know, there she meets magical creatures. She sees like incredible things that she's not seen in her own world. And she stays there for a couple of hours. Hare Krishna, welcome. And when she comes back, time hasn't passed. So in her excited manner, she goes and tells her siblings. She says, you know, I've just found this wonderful place, this magical place. So they all go to check it out, but that door is no longer there, it's disappeared. So then they start to mock her. They start to say, you're talking rubbish, you know, you're deluded, you're this, you know, because the children generally make up things, you know, like, so then, you know, Lucy, she doesn't change her story, she's consistent. She's consistent in what she says and what she believes. She doesn't, you know, so then they take the matter to the professor. You know, this professor is someone who's highly educated. So the professor says, well, from what I know of Lucy, she's not a liar. She's not known to be a liar. She doesn't have any mental issues. So I'm going to believe her. So then Peter takes, he takes issue with this. He says, why do you believe her? I haven't seen it. So if I can't see it, therefore I cannot believe it, isn't it? Like we like to think truth is based on what we can perceive. So Peter says, so the professor said, well, not everything can be seen. It has to be understood by logic, by reasoning. So anyway, so they go backwards and forwards. So anyway, eventually the siblings, they also experience this magical land of Narnia. But it really sets off this really interesting dynamic, because every person in all walks of life always gets asked this question: how can I be certain what you're telling me is true? It doesn't matter whether it's about work, about your health, about anything. We always get asked this question: how do you know? That's the first thing they say. So in this material world, in this world, we cannot walk one step without coming across this. So this talk is really about something called introducing the concept of epistemology. How do we know? How do we understand knowledge? How can we be certain? So in philosophy, this is one of the major branches. It talks about how to ascertain knowledge. So we can, like I remember during COVID, just at the beginning of COVID, people were giving different theories about what to do to avoid getting sick, and people were doing it. Some people were saying, do this, do that, and then even the government was wrong. The government, they had the lockdown. In England, we had about 3-4 lockdowns, and the government said we're going to have a lockdown, then everything will go back to normal. Then they had another lockdown, and the UK government kept contradicting itself. Then people got frustrated, So everyone was giving opposite opinions. We even see, like, if you look at the history of science, we had Newton. Newton was replaced by Einstein. Now there's another prominent person. So the people who we saw as authority, they've always been replaced, because because when you base truth on your senses, you will never come to a absolute certain position. It's not just about philosophical things. It's about existential things. Why am I suffering? Who am I? What is this world? Who is God? We can't understand these deeper questions just through our senses. How do we prove it to ourselves? How do we prove it to others? So we face this dilemma all the time: doubt and certainty. So I'm gonna ask you guys some questions. So just please engage and give some of your experiences. So my first question is: have you ever been completely sure about something and later realized you were wrong? So think about it. We've all had that. Would you like to say, Prabhu?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
What was your experience?
At the moment, I can't exactly remember, but so many times,
Yeah.
I had that feeling that I thought I was right, but then I later was humbled and proven wrong.
Yeah.
That happened many times. I just can't remember specific circumstance, but.
Yeah. Anyone else?
There's always times you think you're right, and then you realize you're wrong. But you read it as completely sure, which is a higher degree of belief.
Yes.
That's a little more difficult.
Well, I'm sure we've had experiences. Maybe when we get older, we become a bit more knowledgeable. But when we're young, we've had experiences where we thought, I'm absolute sure. It's like I remember when like in football, for example, England were in the European Championship final. I don't know if you guys follow soccer here, but so they got to the final twice, and the first time they were playing Italy, and like they were favourites to win it. They actually went 1 goal ahead, and we were like, oh, this is going to break our bad luck. We're going to win a trophy. So the whole country started celebrating prematurely. But what happened? They ended up losing on penalties. So they were absolute certain, but
No, they weren't absolute. They were confident.
With the British, when there's a few minutes to go, like we start to celebrate early. That's like our thing. So for us, it was certain. It may not be absolute certain on that absolute level, but we all have that. Would anyone like to share? Hare Krishna, welcome. It's a very engaging crowd today. Okay, all right. Next question. Right now, what's one thing you're fairly certain about but secretly doubt? You laughing? You must have something. You can share. We're not going to laugh at you. We won't judge you.
I'm currently working on a play project.
Yes.
And I don't know. I am fairly certain about it that it's like gonna end up happening.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be amazing. And
Okay.
but there is a doubt that what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't work out the way we both have
Okay.
But that's there, and
But where's that doubt coming from? Why do you have that doubt?
I don't know. Just because things, okay, so if you plan something, right, it didn't go according to the plan or something changed in it
Yeah.
immediately, and you're completely sure, oh, this is gonna work out. This
Yeah.
is so good.
Yep.
But it
Hmm.
didn't happen.
Okay.
And then you're like,
Well, I like the fact that you can take it in a, you know, it doesn't seem like you're going to be affected if it goes wrong, right? Because you seem quite chilled about it.
not really.
He's detached. Anyone else? Anyone else has, yes.
Very simple. I do expect to arrive, to get home tonight and sleep in my bed. Secretly, I don't know if that's going to take place for 100% sure.
Yeah. It's like, for me, a big one is public transport, you know? Like I always give myself extra 10, 15 minutes to get to a destination because you never know with public transport, anything can happen. Okay, next one. When your certainty is shaken, how do you usually try to fix it? How would you? You, madam, sit on the chair. You seem lost in thought, as if you're going to say something deep.
Okay. Well, usually what helps me is to get back to the trust and faith.
Yes.
I have really strong belief that everything what happens is for my good, is for the better.
Yeah.
Even if it looks like it's actually making something falling apart. So when I'm getting like uncertain about like some of my decisions or
Yes.
whatever was going on, I'm like as a mantra I'm saying to myself like trust the process, everything is for you, like just trust it, like it's all gonna be good. And it helps to kind of get back to that trust and faith.
Yeah.
It always helps me.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I think the majority of us is going to go to Google.
Actually, well, not just Google, ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
Or there's
But
so many
ChatGPT
variations.
is a little bit,
Well, there's a better one now. Is it DeepSeek? They say DeepSeek's meant to be better. Huh?
That's a Chinese one?
Yeah, that's meant to be better. There's also called Perplexity. There's so many. You know, or you can always go to Google Scholar. If that's still around, I don't know. I used to use it when I was at university. So you know, we usually call a friend, you know, to reassure us, or we avoid the topic altogether. We don't want someone telling us we're wrong, you know, or we may, if we're sincere, we may genuinely explore the other side. So you know, like, so it's very difficult in our lives to be certain about things, you know. Like we've all heard of blind faith, but do we ever use the word blind doubt? Who's ever used that word blind doubt?
all the time.
But what do you use it for?
Blind faith is the having an answer but not wanting questions, and blind doubt is having questions but not wanting an answer.
Oh, that's a good one. That's good. I like that.
Mic drop.
Very good. So would you like to say something? Because.
Just that's an amazing way to describe it.
But do you have an amazing way that you can explain it as well?
Oh, blind doubt.
Yeah. It's a very interesting word. We don't use it, but it's actually the other side of blind faith if you think about it philosophically.
Yeah, I think it's also maybe geographically to this region that mostly people on this side of the world have
Yes.
doubts about everything because that's how they're structured, that's how they're brought up. You should be questioning.
Hmm.
So it's actually in the system and the culture that it's a good thing to question. But I think sometimes what happens is, like he said, if you get answers, you even start questioning them, which is a good thing. But at some point, you have to have a stop that, okay, fine, there's some modicum of authority that we accept.
So when I think of blind doubt, I think of like there are good reasons to do something. There are credible reasons, but you still don't do it, because you have that doubt. So like the doctor says, don't eat too much sugar, don't eat junk food, and the doctor's credible. There's so much evidence in the news about it, but you still have that doubt. You always think, I'm going to be that special one who's not going to be affected by this. Like I knew this guy. He was like in my area. He's an old man. He's dead now. But when I was young, he used to drink. He was like what you call it when you smoke so many cigarettes? Chain smoker. He used to smoke 1 packet of cigarettes a day, which I think is about 20 cigarettes. He never got cancer. He died of other, older age related issues, but he never got cancer. So there's always that one person. Would anyone like to say anything before I move on? No? Okay. Right. So how do we ascertain the truth in different aspects of our life? So we've already said a few. We said Google, we said ChatGPT, or DeepSeek, whichever. What else could we use?
People who have been through the things that we are facing right now.
But how would you find them?
Online, like search them up or like ask in my network or like people I know in my life.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Yes.
I think some things you could look at different arguments or debates and just try to see where your values lie in relation to the points that are made.
Okay.
You can compare it, like put it on paper and compare them next to each other.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. Johan, yes.
I think the final truth is always depends upon each person's philosophy.
Okay.
So each person's philosophy is different. So each person's truth is different.
Okay, but we're talking about, let's say, for example, let's say someone's lost, right? And you go up to two people, and one person's intoxicated, right? So he says, yeah, you just do this, go this direction, you'll find your destination. He asks someone else who's not intoxicated, who knows what he's talking about, and gives him the proper directions, and that person gets there. So it's not really dependent on your personal truth. For that drunk person, his personal truth is whatever's coming out of his mouth. But for the other person, he's speaking it through clarity, you know? So personal truth can be very subjective, and it can be very deluding as well at the time. You know, there's many examples of that we can see in the world, you know? But anyone else? Yes.
So I think, and also related to your example you gave, so I think we can find truth. It's only through your own like experience, through your own like going through your own process. So even with the example you gave, like okay, even if it happened for you to talk to this person who gave you kind of wrong direction because he was intoxicated, I think it's because like for you in your path you meant to go through this experience, and going through this even kind of wrong path, you find your own truth and find the way how to kind of get out and go to the right path. So I think you can access, like find the truth only going through your own feelings, experience, and you know trusting your own the inner path.
Yeah, it's like when you're driving and you get lost, and then you kind of speculate, you know, you look out for landmarks, you know, it's things like, I remember once I was in India, I was going from Delhi to Vrindavan, and our driver got lost. So then I was looking, I knew that the biggest temple there was the Krishna Balaram temple. It's like, you know, I don't know how it is, but we were just looking for that. So we were going one way, then we'd end up in a village, then we'd reverse, and we'd keep going. It took us like an extra hour to get there. Yes.
There's one big one is you just, you know, the scientific method, right?
Yeah.
You have, you know, a prediction.
Yes.
You say like, what are the conditions for this? What are the verifiable conditions
Yes.
that you can measure? And
Yes.
look at? And then you kind of observe the cause and effect relationship and see if that prediction came true. And then once you see if it's true or not true,
Yeah.
then now you know because you saw it happen.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Do you want to go into it? No? Yes.
I would approach somebody, an authority,
Yes.
who's established in the truth, who actually knows the truth.
Okay, it's good. Like if you want health advice, you go to a doctor, yes?
Or go to a credible doctor
Yes.
who's,
Hmm.
has good credentials and
Yeah, that makes sense. So did you have your hand up behind?
Yeah, I mean, according to scriptures, isn't it that we have three ways of ascertaining truth? It's like
Yeah, so I'm going to come to that. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see how people go about ascertaining the truth in their own ways, you know? Anyone else? So clarity, it doesn't come from echo chambers, right? It doesn't come from confidence alone. You can be very confident that you're going to go and win the 100 meters race against some Olympian, but that the confidence is not going to get you through there, right? So clarity only comes from truth, right? Clarity and confidence only comes from truth. Not just how it makes us feel, but what it actually is true. So the key idea is that to know the truth, we have to have a method, the right method. So let's say I want to know the time. I don't pick up a book and read the book. That's not going to give me the time. I have to look at my watch. I need to look at the clock on the wall. If I want to know the temperature, I use a thermometer. So there has to be a method that works with what I'm trying to find out. Does that make sense? So we have to have the proper method. So And so then if we don't get the right result, then we can say at that point, well, it doesn't, either the method's wrong or we're not doing something properly. And like you were saying about the scientific method, right? So were you referring to Karl Popper when you were talking about the scientific method?
Just the method.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know, what is that?
Oh, he's some. Yeah. Well, he introduced the scientific method, which is the falsifiability method.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I thought he was referring to that. Okay. So the real issue isn't just what do you believe; it's how do you come to believe it, and what's your process for arriving at the truth, right? And this question has haunted philosophers, scientists throughout history. Okay. Right. So the gentleman was talking about the three ways. So philosophers, scholars and religionists, they've actually broken it down into three categories of how to ascertain the truth. So the first one is pretty obvious. I think there's a clue. I have things on the image. What do you see? Senses. So there is a Sanskrit word for senses called pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means our senses, okay? But is our senses reliable?
No.
Why isn't it reliable?
Imperfect.
Well, what do you mean by imperfect?
Basically,
He's got glasses on.
No, but that might enhance his. He may have some some. That's a good one.
that's true. Actually, that's a good example.
Yeah. Go on. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
That was like a mic.
Yes.
There's like certain ways that we can see or hear certain like frequencies.
Yes, we can't. Yes.
For example.
So they have that dog whistle. You blow it. We can't hear it, but the dog can hear it. Like sometimes there's a. I'm trying to think of another example. Anyway, will come to me. Anyone else? Ed? Yes.
We can see on the top layer of the ocean and everything happens in the depth.
Yeah. Yes. So do you have your hands up? Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So let's say if you use like a measuring instrument, is that considered senses, or is that something? Because you're looking at something.
Yes.
That reads something.
That
you're using your eyes.
Yes, you're using your senses to get information from it. Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, so let's go through the forces. One, the Prabhuji said. So sense perception. What's the defect? Senses. Now, there are 4 defects, and they're progressive. One leads to the other, right? So our senses are limited. I don't think we need to argue about that. We can't hear we can't see so far. We can't see so near. We can't hear certain decibels. Okay. Now, when our senses are, because we receive information from our senses which we already know are imperfect, what happens? We make decisions which basically leads us to illusion. So, for example, I was saying last time I was here, I was in India and I was walking, and I saw a snake. Then the next day when I was walking again, I saw this thing that was a stick, and I thought it was a snake. So then I didn't walk. So then when I came back the next day, I realized it was a snake. It was a stick because I could see in the daylight. So I came into illusion because my senses were imperfect. So when you have imperfect senses, it leads on to making decisions. You come into illusion. The next is you're gonna come into error. So your senses are imperfect. You've come into illusion. Then you're going to make imperfect decisions. Imperfect decisions. You're going to come to wrong conclusions. Then when that happens, you're going to share that with other people. You're going to share that wrong information with other people. And I've used the word manipulated, but the word is cheating. You're going to cheat other people with that imperfect information you have. You may be sincere. You may not realize it, but you've acquired knowledge through your senses. You've become illusioned by it. You've made a wrong decision on it, and then you're sharing that knowledge. So, and then it goes round and round and round. And that's the problem with our senses. It cannot give us perfect knowledge. Would anyone like to argue that?
I did not argue against that.
Oh, okay.
But it was, behind the senses is the
brain?
mind, or the brain.
Yeah.
And a lot of you have the organs that have deficiencies, but then the processing, like you saw the rope, a stick, and you thought it was a snake. That was the processing. So it's like the senses, and then the post-processing also is defective.
Yeah.
And that's with you being conscious.
Yeah.
And then there's another levels where you're not being conscious, and then you become more illusion because you weren't even attentive. And so you're attentive and being an illusion, and being inattentive and not being, and it's still also being an illusion.
Yeah.
The different levels of.
Yeah. Okay. Would anyone like to ask a question about it before I move on? No? Okay, so the next one. What is this referring to? It was just mentioned a few seconds ago. Huh? Say it? No, no shabda.
Rationalism?
Rationalism. So in Sanskrit, what do we call rationalism? Because of A? Anumana. So there's another word for it, so they also call it tarkazo. There's many different ways of saying it. So anumana means it means reasoning based on observation and assumption. Now, if you think about it, right, we all use logic and reasoning in our lives. Now, but to do logic, you need to have prior information. You can't just do logic out of some vacuum. Like if I see something and I observe it, then I can say, well, this is this is what's going to happen again. So your brain forms patterns. So you can only do logic with information you already have. Logic does not produce new information. So if you have let's say you make a premise like just think of example like man is mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore man can fly. No, you can't do that. That's not logic. You can only your conclusion doesn't come from the premise. So logic will not give you new information, and you can only do logic with existing information, something you've observed or you've accepted. Does anyone want to ask a question at this point? Has anyone? Yes, go for it.
The big thing is like, so how do you decide what assumptions you take?
Well, it depends what your values are, what your qualifications are, the people, your environment. All these things come into play. So Bhagavad Gita, obviously I'm getting ahead of myself. It talks about people who have different types of faith, and the faith is determined by the mode that they associate with. So there's goodness, there's passion, there's ignorance. Someone who's in the mode of ignorance, he'll have a different value set to someone in the mode of passion, and he'll have a different value set from someone in the mode of goodness. So depending on your mode, I gave a talk on this a few months ago. It's basically something that conditions you, influences you to act in a certain way, think in a certain way.
So it's like almost not even a choice at that point.
When you're under the mode, you don't really have choice now. You have some free will, but you don't. Yeah. Okay. So inference relies on prior knowledge, which may be incomplete or false. I was just trying to think. I heard something really funny. It was actually a comedian who was talking about logic. It will come to me now. I think it was Ricky Gervais or something. Anyway, it will come to me. Anyway, so he's actually quite smart. Actually, don't go by the humor. He's actually quite witty. So if you think that science is also built on inference, so just imagine like we see something, there's two things and they're separated, there's a gap. So then we use logic to complete that gap. We infer, this connects to this because I believe because of this. So we're using our speculation if you think about it. And sometimes obviously we try to make it reasonable, we try to use credible evidence, but ultimately we're speculating, right? We don't really know. Like, if I said to you, what am I thinking right now? Now, if you're someone who's a psychic or you're a mentalist, you may be able to figure out what I'm thinking about right now, right? But most of the time you won't be able to figure it out. So through sense perception, through logic, you cannot know what I'm thinking, what I want to do, what my plans are. So it's not that senses, pratyaksha and anumana are we don't accept them, we just throw them out. No, they're very good, but they're only good within a certain area. If you take them outside that area, they're not so reliable. Like I gave the example, if I want to know the time, I want to look at a clock. I want to look at the watch. I don't look at the book, So if you use logic and reasoning within a certain area, same with sense perception, then you're okay. So we don't reject it. Obviously, how would you go about doing your everyday duties in the world? How would you have a bath? How would you cook? How would you go to work? How would you do anything, How would you have discussion? You wouldn't be able to. How would you go to when you have your end of year appraisal and you try to justify, I deserve a increase in my salary. You have to use logic and reasoning. You're going to say, I did this, I did that. So we don't reject it. It's very much a part of life, but we cannot use it outside its realm. If we do that, then we're not going to get certain truth. Would anyone like to ask a question? Make a comment? Yes.
I don't know if this is part of the rest of the conversation, but
yeah.
Based on this, I think it presupposes that if the main premise is wrong, then completely the rest of the reasoning is wrong.
100%.
Right? So how do we ensure that we start from a solid premise?
It's a very good question. Did everyone hear that question?
No.
Do you want to say that louder so everyone
I
hear?
think you should say it on the mic.
So you're saying for us to to get the right premise, what do we accept as a foundation? Is that
Correct.
right? So what do we accept as a foundation? But so how would we answer that question? How can we use logic properly? How can we use it? How can we get the right premise with the right foundation? How would we go about that?
Because the pitfall of that would be that you, I think what was discussed earlier, that
Yeah.
everyone can have their own truth.
Hmm.
But my understanding is that there's one truth, at least when we're speaking in the spiritual religious context. So how do we ensure that we have that foundation so that the rest of the reasoning is not faulty?
That's good, and that leads onto my next slide. But can we use logic and reasoning to come to accept a foundation or a truth, or something we think is truth? Is that kind of a certain way to do things? Like if I do an investigation, let's say I want to find, I want to find the best way for me to. I'm trying to think of an example now. Generally, I'll go on to the next slide. So generally, if you think about it, right, how do we learn things? We don't do a scientific investigation. How many of us have tried to figure out the way the world works? We accept it on authority. Our teacher tells us, our parents tell us, our friends tell us. So we go to all these different sources of knowledge.
Flat Earth or something?
Huh?
Flat Earth.
Yeah. I couldn't find ChatGPT if anyone's asking, so I didn't have a symbol for that, so I do apologize. So everything we know pretty much comes from someone who's told us. We accept authority. So of authoritative verbal testimony means shabda. It means someone who we've taken on faith that this person knows what they're talking about. So like I used to use Google Scholar a lot when I used to be at university about 10 years ago. But so we're always accepting it. Like if you want to know somebody, right? And you want to get to know them, you can't use sense perception, you can't use logic, you have to ask them. They are the authority on themselves, right? Like there are people actually, I've actually seen them, they'll look at your face, they'll look at the way you dress, the way you move, and like they'll say, yeah, I think you're from this part of the world, this is what type of work you do. I've seen, I don't know how true it is, but there's some people who can do that, but most of us, we can't do stuff like that. So the easiest way to get information, to get information for a certain thing is to ask, is to learn from people. We can't get away from that. Now, if you use the Financial Times is a British financial newspaper, Economist everyone knows. I mean, The Guardian is I'm trying to say it in a nice way. It's a broadsheet paper in England. Sometimes gives accurate information. Anyway, Wikipedia we all know about. Okay, so it's hearing from an authoritative source. Now, the thing is, just because it's authoritative doesn't mean it's always reliable. If the source is reliable, then the information you're going to get from it's reliable. Yes.
It's like if you go to the MoMA Museum and you see some painting with all this, you try to figure out how old is the painter, what's their gender, what their nationality. You kind of get that from your perception.
100%.
You got to get like the art person to like say, hey, that was this artist, or like little plaque that some authorities presenting. This is the painter who painted it.
Exactly.
There's no way just by looking at the painting you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's true, 100%. It's like, none of us, none of us discovered gravity by throwing, the way Isaac Newton did. None of us did that. None of us found out on birth without asking our parents or referring to our birth certificate. We accepted authority. It's the way we live our lives. Now, we know also that authority cannot always be perfect, right? But does that mean we stop accepting the principle of authority? No. We have to accept authority. Otherwise, how do we function in life, Like, if you want to go to a country on holiday, they have certain visa conditions. You have to accept what they say on their website, follow it, then you're allowed into the country. If you want to work for a certain company, you have to follow what they want you to do. You can't just speculate about it. So we have to ask, whether it's asking someone for directions, whether it's getting your computer fixed, whether it's getting your car fixed, whatever, we have to turn to authority. Would anyone like to ask a question at this point, make a comment? Yes, Hare Krishna, how are you?
Hare Krishna, good to see you. So in other words, we can say we can't rely on our senses because senses are limited, they're not perfect, and we have to go further. And what we can rely on our senses to in this world, but beyond, really.
Well, I'm speaking about, we can use our senses and our reasoning, but within a certain area. If we go outside that area, it's no longer reliable. we've all had experience like that. We were discussing some examples earlier on. Is that okay? Okay. Yes.
So from what I understand, it's like you can get the truth from authority, but like you can never know if it's like capital T truth. Is that right?
Well, it depends what they're for. Most of the time, they don't know.
In your life, you have the truth. But
Yeah.
It's like there is a level of like capital T truth that you just can't.
So when you say, can you say that word again?
Capital T.
Oh, capital T. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it depends. It's like if you ask your, we have this example in the Vedas, like Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, would use it. It'd say, if you want to know who your father is, you ask your mother, right? Because your mother knows. She's the one who conceived the child with that person. She's the authority. It's not going to be some random guy down the street, are you?
She could be actually.
She could be a liar. Yeah.
No, actually, that happened to my father. So he was lied to by his mother that
Oh, wow.
some other man was his father until he was like 20 something. So that actually happened.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like you can't.
Yeah.
Say stuff.
Yeah. So this is the thing. It comes back to the earlier point. You can never know something. If you're using imperfect sources of information acquiring tools, you will never get absolute certainty. For certain things, you can. Like obviously you have to use your intelligence. So if I go to a doctor, he may not be perfect in medicine because obviously it's still speculation. But to some degree, I can get help from him. I can get information. But the point is, we cannot get absolute information. Absolute is a different realm altogether. We can get some, but we don't reject it. Otherwise, we can't live a life. It's going to be difficult. Okay? Yes.
Like a doctor may tell me, eating this and sleeping this at this regular time is going to make you feel better, and then I can test it.
Yeah, you can test it 100%.
Is it right or not?
Yeah.
I can see if it works.
Yeah, 100%. That's like falsifiability by Karl Popper. You can test it. Do you know that? Also, do you know the person?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, let's not get too philosophical. Okay. So, right. So I've talked about Shabda. So I've kind of like shot holes in it. Like we've kind of all accepted. But is there something that is perfect, that gives ultimate knowledge? So if you so this is you seen the image?
Yeah, turn it all the way down.
Yeah. So if we don't accept authority, we're going to fall into problems. We're going to fall into something called infinite regress. And infinite regress is basically, let's say I say something and you say to me, well, how do you know that? Then I say, well, I give you a reason. Then you say, well, how do you know that's true? I give you another reason. Then you say, well, how do you know that? I actually know people like this. They used to do this in school. It's driving me crazy. And you can keep doing this forever. And that's why it's called infinite. You can go on forever and ever. So the point is, you cannot have a discussion. You cannot make progress unless you accept something on a foundational level. Otherwise, you cannot have any discussion. So this is not like something that came out recently. This was actually a something that came up during the Greek times. Right. So there's a famous philosopher. He's considered the father of modern logic, Aristotle. He basically dealt with this problem. He said, if we don't accept something as first principle, something as an axiom, then it's the end of knowledge. Because we cannot keep justifying something, because we don't have the capacity for it, and B, it will never end. So we can't have certainty, and knowledge breaks down, and it goes beyond discussion. It goes into the realm of craziness. So he says, if the series of causes were infinite, there would be no explanation. So you have to accept something on faith. Now, what do you accept? It depends what you're using it for. So Aristotle said, if you wanna have a discussion, if you wanna make advancement, you have to at some point accept. Any one of us here can ask question. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that? But that's not really a sign of intelligence. Like I remember someone did this example for me, and they said, "Do you drive?" I said, "Yeah, I do drive." Show me proof. I showed them my driving license. Then they said, "Well, how do I know that's real? How do I know you haven't designed it? You can get fakes, right?" I said, "No. You can see the signs, you can see all the symbols." He said, "Well, I don't know what it looks like. So how am I supposed to know?" I said, "You can Google it." I said, "Yeah, I have bad eyesight. I can't verify, and there's so many fake things on the internet." And it was going on and on, and I was like, "My God!" And it really hit me. Yeah, you can't. You have to accept something at some level. You have to accept some sort of authority, isn't it?
Have you ever watched the Truman Show?
Yes. Yes. Do you want to explain? So people.
Well, yeah. It's basically it's a story of this guy who lives a life, and like the whole premise of it's kind of a spoiler, but like the whole premise of the movie is apparently his life is just like a televised show, and everything that's happening to him is fully orchestrated and artificial, and he has, at least like for a while, he has no way of knowing that, just because everything. maybe I'm part of your Truman Show, you know.
It's a bit like the Matrix, isn't it? Like when Keanu Reeves, he plays Neo, and he finds out he's living in this virtual reality, you know. Right. And everything what he real is really the shadow. The real world, the substance, is outside that world, you know. But he has to go through a process. He has to accept a method, right? So
you technically can't rationally prove that.
No, you can't. You can't. You cannot prove anything by words. It's like, you know. I'll say it next point. But so what did Aristotle suggest to get out of this point? He used the term. He said we need to accept something as self-evident knowledge. What that means is something that cannot be questioned. We know it. It's reasonable. It's credible to believe it. It's intuitively known. Okay, so truth that needs no proof, known intuitively and immediately. And this is the only way to end infinite regress, by providing a final foundation. So he says that this is not a new term. It's not Aristotle came out of this. This actually was discussed thousands of years ago. It's actually there's a Sanskrit term for this. It's called Swata Praman. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya, he used this term, Swata Praman. He said the Vedas are self-evident. It doesn't need any other proof to prove it. So, for example, he gives the example of the sun. Does the sun get light from another planet? Does it get light from another planet? No, right? It's self-evidently luminous. It's not that we have to shine a torch at it to give it light. No. And the sun gives energy to everything. So the sun it's like so he says that scripture is also self-evident. It doesn't need anything else to prove it. It's luminous. Yes.
There's the one example by Shankaracharya where there were kids crossing a river holding hands. He
Yes.
said, okay, I want you to make sure none of you guys hold hands so you don't lose each other. And he said, okay, is everybody here?
Yeah.
How many are you? And one said, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we lost one.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, no, there's 10 of you. You count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And like, we lost one. And they said, you're the 10th.
Okay.
And it was self-evident. There's like once he heard it, the conception just completely illuminated his consciousness.
Yeah.
He just realized there was no like whole logical process needed. It was just boom.
Yeah. So I was watching this debate between the scientist and this philosopher, and the scientist, he said something that really shocked me. He said, actually we take it on faith that 1 + 1 = 2. And I was thinking, how's that possible? It's obvious. You put two things together, there's 2, right? He said, no, but how do you know you're perceiving it correctly? How do you know what you think is 1 + 1 is uniform all over the universe? You don't know that. You take it on faith. And I was like astonished by that, It's a
the definition of the operation, though. It's like
true, but the thing is that the meaning of the words, the way what you perceive. If you think about it, you don't really know 1 + 1 = 2. You just take it on faith. Yeah, the only reason you could do that formula, that is by basically you've accepted some principles. That one item means 1, but in reality it could mean something else. You don't know what you're perceiving. You have to think about logic, because what we perceive, I can't remember the science behind it, but basically what we're perceiving is just is like a minute reflection of what reality is. They say that light shines on your eyes, then you can see what's in front of you. I'm not explaining it very well, but basically we don't perceive everything really. So everything we know, like scientists, they base everything on, they have axioms for everything. That, not just that example, other things like, I had all these examples in my head, I forgot all these examples. But basically, they accept everything on axioms. So if they don't have axioms, they can't do science. They can't make progress. Yes?
My kids hit each other and say, atoms don't touch. Atoms don't touch. And they hit each other.
Oh yeah, because atoms always vibrating. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So,
That's so funny.
So everything, if you think about it, is based on the principle of faith, right? You have faith when you get in the morning when you take public transport, that the bus driver, the train driver knows how to drive. He's not a crazy guy. He's going to get you from A to B. You're not going to be attacked by anybody. You take everything on faith. Otherwise, if you don't have that, how are you going to get by? So regarding the example of the driving, my driving license, The way to prove it, normally we'd say, well, here's my driving license. And because you accept that driving authority, that's okay. You've accepted that, right? But if you didn't accept it, how would I prove it to you? It's impossible. Like, who said it? So someone says that, like, you can't prove anything by words if you think about it. You can't prove anything. Like, I could say, okay, I'm from London, but how do you know I'm not doing an accent? I could be, I could be from South Africa. I could be from Australia. I mean, I can do those accents if I want to, but I'm not going to do it now. But the point is, you cannot prove anything by words. You have to accept it on faith. But that faith is credible, right? So you have to accept some sort of axiom, some sort of first principles, something as self-evident to get the process going, to get knowledge going. Would anyone like to ask a question, make a comment? No?
I'm starting to doubt if I'm going to get home tonight. I don't know if my home exists.
Yes. So.
It's more like a statement, like, I guess, like surrendering yourself to Krishna.
Yeah.
Surrender yourself to Krishna. You believe in that faith. You believe in.
Yeah.
What you're supposed to, what you're not supposed to do. So I guess something like that.
But why do you believe in Krishna? But you didn't do it at some random vacuum. There's got to be a reason behind it, right? Some credibility why you did that. No?
Yes.
So what's the reason? Why do you choose that? Remember when I said we have to have the right method. We have to have good reason to accept something. What's your reason?
Oh yeah, I mean, just the teachings, like, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no, intoxication. All those are good things.
Yeah.
And they're your benefit. And it also talks about, moksha, anger, lust, jealousy, like those are the sins of the mind. And so once you start thinking about that and once you accept that, you're just like, okay, I just feel a lot more better.
Okay.
And I just feel at peace.
But I'm not doubting what you're saying. What you're saying is definitely valid. But I'm just trying to make it get into a discussion where if you think about people have different values, right? There's some people who are in the mode of ignorance who like to drink, have weed, sit down in the park, have alcohol, and chill out. Like for them, that's their reality. That's their drug dealer is a good person, because he gives them weed, or the person who sells them alcohol when they shouldn't. He's a good person. So it depends on your values and it depends on what mode you're in. So what you're saying is good because that's in the mode of goodness. But if you're in the mode of passion and ignorance, then you're going to have a problem. How do what you choose as authority, what you choose according to is the mode determines what you place your faith in. Does that make sense? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm just saying people have different values and different faiths. Yes, but you was nodding your head? No? Okay. Yes.
Isn't that also like a matter of practicality too, where it's just like the scriptures have these values, and I know these things are good, so I want to live my life in this good way, and it gives me peace.
Yes.
Right, but just because these values are good and makes me feel peace, does that necessarily mean that this is the creator of the universe? Like, I feel like that's a leap on some level, right?
Are you saying so? If you get some sort of peace of mind, that's not strong enough evidence for believing in the process? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get peace for a lot of other things as well. Peace of mind. It's not just one thing. You could smoke weed and get peace of mind. So, so I'm gonna just wrap it up now because I've kind of so basically, I was going to explain the secular reasoning. So I was going to say that the Vedas makes that claim that it is self-evident knowledge. So it doesn't say have faith and believe it. The Vedas says something really dynamic. It says test it, have the experience, and verify for yourself. Because proof ultimately is subjective. If you think about it, right? If I say I'm a good cook, I can tell you I'm a good cook. How are you going to know I'm a good cook? You have to taste my cooking, right? I mean, I can give some logic, I can give, premise, but that's not going to do anything, right? Right. So you have to taste it. So there's a saying, the proof is in the pudding. So just because I'm just running out of time. So the Vedas are the oldest body of knowledge. They're not compiled by a human. They weren't said in one point in history. The Vedas makes a claim it's eternal. So they're known as Apurushaya. Apurushaya means it didn't come from man. It wasn't someone's speculation, someone's based on someone's perception. It's always existed. It's coming from God. It's coming from the divine person. So it's and it's always been consistent, coherent. It's timeless. So you see a lot of bodies of knowledge, like science, for example, they're always changing it, right? They're jumping from one truth to the other because they're discovering new things. But with the Vedas, it's not like that. It's always been the same, right? And people have done that process and they've got that same result. So a lot of processes, whether it's science, philosophy, they say have faith. The Vedas doesn't say that. The Vedas says test it for yourself. You know, so there's something called intrinsic value. It's intrinsic. So most of the different philosophies are extrinsic, which means you need an external process. But the process the Veda gives you, it's an intrinsic. It's you get that understanding yourself. You verify it to yourself. Does that make sense? Okay, let's quickly go for it. So anyway, I don't have time to go for it, but I'll just quickly go for it. So the Vedas gives a process. What is the process? Chanting Hare Krishna, reading Bhagavad Gita, associating with devotees, worshipping deity, coming to the temple. Now, if you want to know, regardless of what it is, if you want to know, this is a criteria which even certain philosophical systems also follow. If you want to know something to verify, you've got to understand what it means, right? It's not like having some superficial. Understanding what it means you got to know what is it constituted of. What's the reasoning behind it? What's the logic behind it? What's the credibility behind it? Once you know what it means, then you have to then you go on to the next step, which is the method. Is there a method to verify it? Because you know what you're looking for. If the method matches the knowledge and it looks credible, then you will do it. And then is there good reason to trust it? Is it credible? Well, the Vedas gives evidence of people who've done the process. It's documented. They've got the results that are mentioned in the Vedas. So the Vedas fulfills the criteria of self-evident knowledge. It gives you a knowledge which is certain and absolute. But you've got to do the process yourself. You have the onus is on you to go out and do verify it for yourself. I can say anything, right? But you have to also be able to use your intelligence and try to verify it. Now, we say the Vedas is unique. It's because it's not coming from man. It's Aporishaya. It's existed eternally. It's documented what results it gives. Okay. Now, not all Shabda is equal. I think we already discussed that. Other paths reflect, Vedas reveal. Now, I don't want to go on discussing about different religions and different philosophy because but we have to see what does the knowledge say. How was it delivered? Has it been consistent? Is it coherent? Is it timeless? Right? And is there a process? Is it asking you just to have faith and be delivered, or is it saying, here's the process, verify it for yourself, and do that research yourself? So the Vedas makes that claim. So I don't have it in front of me. So the Bhagavad Gita is such a book which is the essence of the Vedas. It basically gives you a process. In chapter 9, verse 2, it says that by practicing this knowledge, you'll be able to verify this knowledge for yourself. It's called Pratyak Savagamam Dharmyam. I'm trying to remember the full verse. That's what happens when you get that's it. Thank you. So yes. So the knowledge is not like static knowledge. It's multi-dimensional knowledge. It's knowledge that when you read it, you will be. It doesn't just give you the method, but you can also experience the truth of the message. Okay. So Prabhuji was. Is he still here? You're still there, right? Okay. So he was saying some things. So what he was saying was perfectly true. So I would advise you to please read the Gita if you haven't read it. Try the process. Try to question. Don't have blind doubt. If you don't be someone. So we're not asking you to have blind faith. We're asking you to have intelligent doubt. But then you have to make a decision. You can't be on the periphery because you won't be able to know. If you want to know I'm a good cook, you've got to taste my cooking. So like that. The same way. That's what the Veda says. Okay, I'll stop here. So I wanted to speak a bit more about the other level sections, but I've kind of run out of time. Hare Krishna. So. Would anyone like to make a comment, ask a question, tell a joke? No? Okay.
One question, one comment.
Okay, sure.
I just have a comment.
Well, yes, what's your comment?
I think the important thing we have to understand is
One sentence as well.
One.
Sorry?
Yeah, so not a lecture, because just in a few sentences. Because
I just like in the book of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna.
Okay.
It talks about multiple paths
Yes.
one God.
Okay.
And he himself goes through stages in his own life
Yes.
where he follows Islam, he follows Christianity, and he actually feels the power of Christ or feels the power of Allah, and then he embodies, the God himself. So essentially, he feels the God. Doesn't matter which God you call the name. In the end, he says, there's multiple paths, there's one God. That's all.
So Krishna also says in the Gita that Krishna also refers to that. He talks about different paths, but he says those paths have to be based on scripture, on authority. Otherwise, anyone can make up any path. Now, if you're someone who's following Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, and that's your path, and you're experiencing God, that's really good. Our philosophy says, find your truth and practice it, and become the best Christian, become the best Muslim, become the best Jew. We're all for that. But if you want more knowledge of spirituality, then read the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and the Bhagavad Gita is comprehensive. Now, you're right. There's only one God, because if there's many gods, that's not the definition of God. So there's only one God. According to the Vedas, according to Bhagavad Gita, we call that person Krishna. And Krishna may be known by many names, because God has many names, right? He doesn't have one name, right? He's not limited like us. So yes, if you're following that path, that's fine, But don't be someone who's on the periphery and just bounces to one thing to the other. Like, when I was in school, we used to have this term that someone supports one football team, and when they lose, he goes on to another football team. We used to call that Snyder. It doesn't really mean much here, but in England it meant a lot. So we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be a Snyder. We just be consistent and be true to your path and do it. But make sure it's based on authority and it's authentic. It's actually what the scripture is saying. Okay? Question? Any other question? No?
Now would be a chance if you'd like to ask Prabhu any more questions. We're going to take prashad and we can come up and
When are we going to taste your cooking?
I like spicy food. I can bring it, no problem.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was Christ a follower of Krishna, which is why his name is Christ from Krishna? Is that?
Well, he didn't say Krishna outright, but he believed in God. He worshipped God. He said chant God's name. He talked about virtues, which are also found in the Vedas. So I've heard from some people, they've said that he called God Christos, and Christos is Greek for Krishna. That's what I've heard. I don't know for sure. But the point is, he was worshipping God, and Srila Prabhupada, our Acharya, said he's worshipping Krishna. Krishna has been known by a different name, and that's fine. So he was a genuine spiritual master. He taught love of God, and we can see by his actions how many people is inspired to turn to a life of religion. So for us, he is also a great spiritual teacher. He's a great Acharya. Okay? Finish here. Thank you very much.